debating death and memory, past and present. It's an Archaeodeath debate.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm thank you in advance for Spiritual Squirrel Vox, my moderator, and a bit of change of. First of all, I cannot be joined by Archeo Spook. Archeo Spook has not got 1,000 followers, and I didn't make the connection. Therefore, she can't go live with me. And I did promise you that Archeo Spook and myself would be talking about this brand new program called Digging for Treasure, which is on Channel 5. The fourth and final episode of this short run series of 4 episodes is airing on Friday in the UK. And I want to talk about this. Now, Archaeospook and I can't do this now because she doesn't have 1,000 followers on TikTok. So what we did instead is we did a YouTube discussion. We had a Teams discussion, then posted it onto YouTube. So if you want to learn more about our thoughts, go to YouTube. Not now. Listen to me now, please. Stay with me. But go to YouTube, to my Archaeodeath YouTube channel, where you can see a 55-minute discussion of this new program. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you, Anna. Lovely to see you. Oh, there's Spiritual Squirrel Box. Hello, Ivar. Hello, everybody. Hi, Fable. Lovely to see you. So, what I want to do is really just give you an introduction first. That there's been many TV programs on archaeology or showing archaeology in action of different forms and characters. We had the Time Team. We got digging for Britain. We've got Digging Britain's Past. There's been other documentaries featuring archaeology. I made the point that while I've been on travel magazine programs, religious history programs, early medieval history programs, and art history programs, I've never been on archaeology and never been on a single archaeology show in my career. And I'm actually hoping that continues. I don't really want to be on archaeology shows, but I would like to discuss this program because it's different. Right, there's been various archaeology shows, but this one is different. It's controversial because what they're doing is they're following a group of metal detectors around each week. So each week there's 4 episodes, and each week they're in a different part of the island of Britain, and they are following a group of metal detectorists while they explore the fields using metal detecting as a main technique for discovering artifacts in the plough soil, and then reporting on them. And in the YouTube video, Archaeospook and I identify some real problems with this. They're trying to give it a live feel. So you start off with these kind of, hi, here we are in a field, we got a tent, we got we've got a finds liaison officer, which is the Portable Antiquities Scheme archaeologist, and they've got, we're out here digging for history, we're out here doing all this stuff. And so we have all this kind of sense of action, of dynamism, and they actually call the program Digging for Treasure, tonight, to emphasize this sense of it's almost live. Now, it's not live, but they're giving that vibe. And it's the 3 presenters are Dan Walker, Michaela Strachan, and Raksha Dave. And Raksha is the archaeologist, and she is currently president of the Council for British Archaeology and is well known on other TV programs. So she's an archaeology TV presenter. In fact, she's the kind of go-to archaeology TV presenter at the moment. Michaela Strachan and Dan Walker are sort of well-known, random, grifting presenter type people, aren't they, really? Do all sorts of nature stuff and topical stuff. And so I suppose for me, Time Team is the benchmark now, and I see people are referencing Time Team. Hi. Hello, Amy. One of my students here. But this is different because they're actually taking I should also say there's some backstory and there's ongoing experiments of attempts by TV to work with metal detectors and make metal detecting into TV. Now, we've had the Detectorist TV show, which is fiction. It's a drama with Toby Jones and Mackenzie Crook, following sort of light-hearted comedy set in Essex, following their adventures and minor spats and love lives and so on. But in terms of actual documentaries, there's been various attempts to use metal detecting as a focus. And most notoriously, about 10 years ago, there was the Nazi war diggers, which became morphed after objections from the international community into battlefield recovery, which used mainly American-based militaria dealers and metal detectorists to basically rifle Eastern Front Second World War battlefields. And they actually were uncovering human remains and ordnance, potentially live ordnance. And it was a car crash, an absolute car crash, and everyone objected in the archaeological community to how grossly unethical it was. And surprise, surprise, the only TV channel in the UK that finally would air it was Channel 5. And I've heard of word of various other Channel 5 programs being produced, other TV programs being produced focused on metal detecting. And now we have it finally happened. It's like Charlton Heston at the end of Planet of the Apes. God, they've finally gone and done it. They've produced Digging for Treasure. So what do I think about it? Well, Archaeospooky did a video saying she thought it was a car crash, the first episode. And I must admit, I watched it and, on my own in private, screaming and, crying and pulling my hair out and drinking heavily. Cheers. Not only the title, but also the sort of magazine style dynamic. Here we are tonight, look what they just found. Oh my word, what's that? Is that a coin? It's gold. And there are many red flags, right? And I don't deny that. There are many red flags to the TV program. But then also there's archaeologists on the show. Hi Anna, yes, I see your point about why they're condoning it. So archaeologists are working on the show. And already Archaeosoup and Mark Barkman-Astles and Andy Brockman have been investigating how that happened. Why are there archaeologists on the show as part of this treasure hunt style archaeology show? And it is very, very American, and it's obviously pitched for a UK audience, but hopefully, hi Ren, sorry, I should have said hello Ren, but it's pitched to a wider audience, right? So at one level, my first reaction was like Archaeospook, this is a car crash. And I think the first episode was particularly triggering as a professional and an academic. But also, I would say that with the reflection and watching 3 programs, not only do I feel that each episode got better, and looking at the filming schedule, it's almost like they've literally just filmed this. And I wonder whether they've been reacting almost live to the criticism of the first episode and improved the second and third. So if I may, what I thought I would do in this live is say, the metal detective, I like that Ivor, is if I could ignore your comments for the moment, if I may, and I'll come back to them and any questions, but go through what I thought were the good points. Let's try and be positive here. What is good about this TV program? Because the reason I care is I've literally just produced a book called The Public Archaeology of Treasure, it's from a student conference, and the edited collection is a mixture of student contributions, heritage professionals, museum experts, and academics, all trying to contribute to the challenges of the illicit trade in antiquities, of looting of archaeological sites, of all those issues, but also how we deal with the many positive ways that we can engage with popular culture through treasure, from films like National Treasure, which are pure fiction but engage people, Indiana Jones, where treasure is in different ways the real focus of this this fictional archaeology sort of storyline. And it's a focus of a fulcrum around which morals play. It's not treasure can be deceptive. It can be a curse. It can, rather than a blessing. Treasure can take metaphorical forms. Even in Indiana Jones, the real treasure is knowledge, and it's knowledge that ends up destroying the bad guys, or spiritual intervention. It can be a trap. And so you have this we already have a very sophisticated, complex understanding of conceptions of treasure. So that's what the book's about. So I wanted to go. That's why I want to comment on this Digging for Treasure TV program, where it's riding into this space, which my book is addressing. Okay, so let me give you some things that I think are good about the TV program, because I think it does need credit. We need to put it in context. If we're going to critique this, we have to say what we think is appropriate and what we think is bad. So I'll list out some good points. So first of all, it is the first ever program of this style. It's an experiment, and I think it deserves credit. It's experimenting with working with metal detectorists, archaeologists doing the guidance and evaluation and identifying the finds, and the finds all then being reported and catalogued in the national database of the Portable Antiquities Scheme. It has 3 presenters. Dan Walker is, I think, really good. He makes some crap jokes, but he's okay. Michaela Strachan is variable. She's incredibly annoying, but she's also really fun. And they, if it was just one of them, I think it would drive you mad. But having a balance of different non-expert presenters, I think there's not a single Tony Robinson type figure that you either love or hate. I think you have a balance of personalities. And then there's Raksha as a lead prominent archaeologist. I mean, they call her the most eminent archaeologist in British archaeology. I mean, she's a TV archaeologist, right? She has a professional background, but in this context, she is she's a TV archaeologist. So there's a triad of presenters, and they are joined by a range of archaeology experts for different snippets, including each week they have an expert identifier, a finds liaison officer, or for the second week they have Dr. Alison Sheridan, who's a National Museum of Scotland. So you have a professional, two archaeologists who are professional TV presenting archaeologists, and then an expert who's identifying the finds. And I think that's all very positive. So the multiple presenter, and I think really works with the experts coming in. The second point I think is really good is they are focusing on a key site. This is point 2. They're focusing on a key site, right, where metal detecting, they're working with a group of metal detectorists to basically, the simple question is, what was here? We're near, in the first episode, near a medieval castle. Second episode, near a medieval castle in Scotland. First castle's North Yorkshire, second castle's Loch Leven, and then a third site in Norfolk is a Roman site. But the basic question is, what did people do here in the past? There's no specific research question, which is a weakness, but there is just a simple, let's look for the everyday people. Let's look into the past for the everyday. What happened here over time? They call them key sites, but it's never clear why they picked that site, other than they claim they did the research. But I think having a focus on a key site is good, and it has that is a merit. The magazine style is my third point. Now, I think the key site is a good thing, but then the best bits are actually the cameos, the small little reports from elsewhere that fill out the second half of the shows. They're about 45 minutes each episode when you take away the dreadful adverts. And in that regard, I think those actually are quite good. They work well. And some of them involve archaeologists, such as archaeologists reporting on other sites, working with metal detectors, working with underwater scuba detectors, detectorists. And I think, thanks, Beth. Thanks, Archaeospook. Thank you for that clarification. Working, other case studies. So you're not fixated on the one site. The one site is balanced against various other cameos. And also another dimension of the program is to have video reports coming in from basically metal detectorists said, I've been metal detecting for 10 years and I've found something interesting. What is it? And then the finds liaison officer identifies it and tells them about it. And I think in all those regards, that's a good mix of a key site they're investigating. But then my point 3 is the magazine style cameos and video reports work well. My fourth point would be, I like the mix of land-based archaeology and shore, coastal, estuarine, and underwater archaeology, So it does give you a range of different kinds of ways in which metal detecting can contribute to archaeological inquiry, dealing with shipwrecks, dealing with coastal eroded sites, dealing with things lost on beaches, as well as fields, farmers' land. Okay, and I think that is a really really important balance. There's a lot of variety. It doesn't fixate on just the key sites. And I think that is a really good fourth point. The fifth point is that in doing that, archaeologists are not simply the experts who identify what the metal detectors find. You get cameos of projects where archaeologists, professional and academic archaeologists, are leading or collaborating. So David Gibbons is a maritime archaeologist, and there's a cameo about him. There's also a cameo of a community archaeology project in Hull. That's my point 5. So there's actual real archaeology mashed in. It's subsidiary, but there are examples of actual genuine archaeological research featuring in this program. Right, my sixth point that's good, I think, is the tent. I have this massive open tent which provides a real visual focus. I'm at a theatre in which there's a table, which Raksha sets out her table of chronology. So all the finds are processed as they come in. There's an audience of metal detectorists. And then the finds liaison officer identifies things, puts it under the macro camera or whatever they call it, and then they lay out on the table so that accumulating through the show, you get a sense of the timeline of discoveries from, say, Bronze Age through to 20th century. Okay, so you do get a sense of what they're trying to achieve visually mapped out, and I think that really works well. And the tent is also really good at night. It's a visual spectacle because they seem to be trying to do it all in one day, and so they lit the tent, so it really looks dramatic and engaging as a focus of what they're doing. So that's a really other positive point, I think, that came out. There's always, all these TV programs have, let's go back to the project room. But I think this takes it to a new level. It's not very sophisticated. They don't have computers and 3D designers and all that kind of thing like Great British Dig or anything like that. But it does, I feel, have a really grounded, down-to-earth, in the field itself. But here we're finding out the results on site. And I think that's really good. This is going to knock off a lot of archaeologists, but my point 7 is that the legal aspects are iterated again and again. That this is legal, they research, they got permission from the landowner to do the work, and they're reporting and cataloguing all the finds. They keep talking about that. They keep emphasising the value issue as well. In other words, the legal and ethical aspects are covered, and it's a bit eclectic how they're covered, but they do emphasise there's guidance online to explain if you want to get involved. They keep emphasising that the value of treasure is not monetary. And I think that is really important, is that despite this being about metal detectorists and they're calling it digging for treasure, when you get into the actual meat of the show, they're constantly going on. So they're asking Andy in the first episode, who's the finds liaison officer, so how much would that be worth? And he says, well, the money is not what we're looking at. We're interested in information. And they use a phrase, information and imagination is what the objects bring, not financial reward. And they keep emphasizing that. And all the presenters do that in a way which I think is really important. So while we can criticize the show, I think they've nailed that. And I think it'd be a bit disingenuous if we forget that point. And I think that's really, really, really key. Another point I think is really important is it does show a democratization of archaeology. There's not just a few volunteers on site. The metal detectorists are doing the discovery, but they also are the voices. They identify objects. They discuss the objects. And I think that's really important. Now, yeah, there may be the same kind of characters that are metal detectorists, which is sort of mainly white middle-aged men. And there's a few women there too. But there are women and men all involved in this program. And I think another really positive point is that they put a lot of effort into making sure that there's not just metal finds. Now, metal detectors find metal finds, but you also they discuss quernstones, pottery, and I think that's really important too. And in terms of the demographic, a further aspect I think is really important. This is not simply adults. They show kids in both some of the video reports and also on site, on their key sites. Kids are finding things and getting involved. One kid on one of the video reports said, I'm going to go on and do a GCSE in history. I'm so inspired. I've been metal detecting. And I, like it or hate it, it does try to make the point. This is for the kids as well. This is not just for a bunch of middle-aged men. And I think that's really, really important to remember when we're critiquing this. Point 11, the FLO explains his role very clearly, and there are a range of cameos, as I said, from leading experts in the field. So the great and wonderful bow-tied wearing Kevin Leahy appears in episode 3. Ian Richardson, the senior treasure registrar, talks about a Neolithic stone axe as an example. And as I said, each week the first week we have a finds liaison officer for the Northeast, Andy Agate, I don't know how you say his surname. Then you have Alison Sheridan from the National Museum of Scotland. And then you have Dr. Helen Geek in the 3rd episode. And I think all of those give authority to not only identifying the finds, but talking about what treasure is and what treasure is not. And all of them do that. Particularly Helen Geek nails it, but also the other two do very well with that as well. And I've got 2 other very positive things I'd say about the programme. One is time. They emphasised that the finds that are of value to both metal detectorists, hobbyists, and archaeologists are all of any period. The 20th century is archaeology. It comes home really clearly. Second World War bombers, First World War buttons off a military uniform. Everything that's modern is taken seriously, as well as early historic, prehistoric finds. And I think that is really not to be sniffed at, that this is a program that isn't simply another time team investigating another bloody Roman villa or another medieval manor house. God, how many time teams did that? This is trying to look beyond the toffs, beyond is it high status, Tony? They're trying to get away from that. And I think they do it. Whether they consciously did that or not, I don't know, but I think it's a good thing, okay? And my final point of positives is that whether they planned it or not, their memory and intimacy are key to the dialogue between people today and old things that are being found in fields, right? Intimacy in the sense that the detail of the object, the fact that object was lost by someone, and is the anxiety and the stress, that sense of empathy with the person who lost that object, whether it was valuable or intimate to them, and the fact that it's intimate for the person who's found it, because that is a direct connection to a person in the past. They keep coming back to that, but particularly they come back to the idea of memory. So there is one object that at the end of the third episode, they say, this actually could have been on someone's, a wrist clasp that could have been on someone's sleeve. And that even could have been from a burial that's just been disturbed. So there's a funerary aspect. There's objects that are from a Lancaster bomber that crashed on its return mission from bombing Berlin, and in a Norfolk field. And they've got objects that would have been literally touched by someone who perished in that wreck. Now, there's an ethical issue of whether they should have done that or not. But I'm just saying, that there are these intimate aspects to it. And also there's a sense that there's in one of the cameos, they have a metal detectorist who finds rings on beach, and he says, "Well, people call me the Lord of the Rings." But one of the examples they use is of an object that is of a ring that had the ashes of a boy's father, and he lost the ring on the beach, and the metal detectorist was able to retrieve it for him. So, the metal detectorists are being shown as people who are caring about, not just simply, they're not interested in just monetary reward. They are interested in objects that resolve or address the intimacy and the mnemonics, the memory associations of objects. And I think that was really powerful. Whether you're a fan of metal detecting or not, I think we have to recognize that is a positive thing about this TV program. Okay. So I think there's a lot of positive in here, that it was interesting, diverse. It represents a range of different kinds of metal detecting. The ethical and the legal issues are explained. And there were a lot of archaeologists involved. I haven't counted them all up, but there must have been, even though there's no archaeological dig, no archaeological methods and techniques, this isn't an archaeology program, there must have been at least, the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think about 10 archaeologists must appear in various different guises, if not 11, 12, in these 3 episodes. No, Johnny Prince Charlie, we're discussing the new program called Digging for Treasure. Which is on Channel 5, and they've aired 3 episodes. There's also the tank found in the sea. Now, I was going to come back to that, Bethany, because actually I've written a research paper about the Slapton Sands, the Torcross tank, and they interviewed Dean Small, Ken Small's son, and I've actually got a peer-reviewed journal article about that tank, and that is another interesting example, because this was a duplex drive Sherman tank that was lost off the beach of Slapton Sands in Devon, and a local metal detectorist had been finding militario on the beach and uncovered the story of the fact this was used for the US Army battle training for D-Day, and he mobilized support to get the tank hauled out of the sea and put as a memorial to the US soldiers who died in the battle training on the beach at Torcross. So I've done an actual critique of that. And what was really funny about that was that they bought into hook, line and sinker the narrative of Ken Small and his son, who's still alive, of the metal detector as the revealer of ancient truths, of distant mysteries that the government didn't want to let you know, which is deeply problematic. So I was going to get onto that as a critique point, but maybe I'll do that later. But yeah, that was a really dodgy element. And they should have really interviewed me, because actually it's all a bit of a myth. It's a myth about a myth, because yes, there were soldiers who died, but they didn't die on Slapton Beach. They died in the middle of Lyme Bay, and they didn't, and there was no secrecy about it. It was all in the official war history after the war. But from a metal detectoring perspective, he felt he was uncovering some hidden truth. And it all backfired on him for the 40th anniversary of D-Day in 1984, when another local lady started talking to the media about how she believed there were fields of corpses of US Marines, that have been hidden away. And it all went out of hand. Basically, it was rumor and fantasy that took over. And that's a really complex story. So I found it very amusing to see that old chestnut coming back and being used in a 2022 TV program without any archaeologist involved in that clip. So that was one of the weaknesses of the program. I have a 2010 peer-reviewed article. It's on my Academia Edu site, co-authored with Samuel Walls, on the Torcross tank and how Ken Small did create a memorial as an amateur, almost antiquarian metal detectorist. He created a memorial through the tank. And that tank memorial has a biography of different memorials added to it. It's got multiple plaques. And it's also a memorial to Ken himself. When he died, they put up a plaque to commemorate the man who instigated its retrieval from the seabed. So it's the memory of memory, and through memorialization, anyway, don't worry about it. But yeah, that was an interesting case study. But my point is, there's this 3 episodes, whether you like it or hate it, and I'm not saying I like it, there's a lot in there for discussion. There's a lot of positive points. They've put effort into being professional, respectful, and dealing with a range of different ways in which hobbyists interact with archaeologists. Okay, so that's my positives. Watch the program yourself and come to your own determinations. Can I go on to the negatives then? Because I know this is the stuff you really want, isn't it? Is Howard ranting about the negatives. So there's the positives, and I think I don't know if Bethany would agree with all of those points, but I think that touches on a lot of the things we did say, that it's not totally disastrous. There's a lot of effort gone into this, and we do feel it's an experimental first season, and that I think there's a lot of potential for future, for future seasons to improve on this model. I think that's basically where we got to at the end of our YouTube, wasn't it? That, yeah, it's okay, but it could have been good. But here's the reasons I didn't think, or I think Bethany might agree with many of these, but I won't blame her if she doesn't, of why I think there were some problems. It was clearly rapid and rushed and a bit of a mess, is my first point. In fact, it was so eclectic. There's so many bits in the program. It was really confusing what was going on. In fact, I think in the first episode was the worst, because it was only in about 9 minutes where you actually were told where they are and what they're doing. And it almost felt like I'd missed half an hour when I joined. So it was eclectic. It was eclectic. It was a TV program. You think, hold it, did I just go to the loo? Did I make a cup of tea? Did I miss the introduction? Oh, by the way, cheers. That was it. The second point that was really dodgy was that they're not working with a single metal detectorist or a small group of clubs. They seem to be working with, at least in some cases, at least with the first episode, a business. North Detectoring Events. So it's a commercial rally. And I'm not the person to raise this first. Andy Brockman has raised this first in the pipeline expose of this, because this is a problem, because rallies, big scale, we have Americans coming over to the UK to go on rallying holidays. We have people like descending on fields with landowners' permission, 50, 60, 70 detectorists. It is like the comedy scene is at the end of the second season of the Detectorists, where they all just turn up. Was it the third season? Yeah, and they're just like, they're all in the same point. Could you all just spread out? Yeah, I think it's the end of the third season. It is like that, and people, archaeologists have been heavily critical, because it's not just metal detecting; it's high intense metal detecting on one location. It's basically strip clearing the plough soil of particular locations. It's legal in the UK. I should emphasise this. I may not agree with it, but it is legal to do this if you've got landowners' permission, and if it's not a scheduled site, if it's not a protected site by law, then it's legal with landowners' permission. But the scale of it was a bit unsettling. It's not the fact there's a couple of metal detectors out there. There were dozens upon dozens. And I think that was really a bit scary and a bit worrying. The language. Now, there were many good examples of respectful and positive language. And I want to give you some examples of the positive I didn't say before. Archaeological treasures right under our feet. A team of history hunters and enthusiasts. From tiny fragments of pottery to priceless antiquities, whatever we find will help us uncover the hidden history of this area and tell the stories of people who lived here hundreds of years ago. And they kept using a triad of terms. The people who lived, loved and died here. People who lived, fought and died here. The emphasis on the common person, the everyday person. And I thought that was really a slice of history. It's all part of citizen science, they said. And there was lots of those kind of terms. And really, it was almost in that regard, they were co-opting professional archaeological language, a bit jazzed up for TV, but into metal detecting. And we can think about that. But there were points where it went a bit off-piste. So there was a whole section of the episode 1. Next stop, gold, was said. They talked about archaeological hotspots, which is kind of a dog whistle for treasure finds. Jackpot was a phrase used for discovering something great. A myriad of treasure. Most exciting find, real gold. And there was some sensationalizing of language beyond my ability to cope. So they did put a lot of effort, to be fair, into being a little bit calmer. But they really did go too far. Yeah, sort of metal detecting rallies. So it's not just a local club like in the TV show The Detectorist, where a couple of guys go out, have a smoke, have a coffee by a tree, and then spend half a day going up and down. It's literally dozens and dozens and dozens of people. And it's a business. It's being run as a business. So you pay a fiver to the company and you turn up and you do it. So that was my point earlier, Anna. So thank you for clarifying that you weren't aware of that. Another aspect of the program that was really annoying was the audience. They were special. So they had a lot of clapping, and I think they toned this down in episodes 2 and 3. But they were all like, "And here he is, Ray!" And everyone was clapping like he's picked his nose, Ray. You know, oh, he's on the loo, Ray. Everyone was clapping. You know, it was just beyond. You couldn't watch it. It was too much clapping. It was too much enthusiasm. We don't do that in the Britain. It's trying to jazz it up for an American audience where someone goes, "And our next guest is," you know, and here he is. You know, it was too much. It was just painful. It was beyond my ability to cope. It was beyond my ability to cope. Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm on the wine. There are issues of production, which Andy Brockman has raised, that it's still unclear whether they actually had legal, one segment of the programme where they were investigating the site of a crashed Lancaster bomber, whether they had actual Ministry of Defence licence to do that investigation, because that would constitute... I don't know the details of this, so I've got to be careful what I say, but there are questions being raised by Andy Brockman about the Lancaster bomber. There's also questions that Andy Brockman's raised about whether the Port of Antiquities scheme were actually approached before or after the production of the programme. And it does look like they were just approached with a fait accompli. "Oh, we're doing a programme, do you want in or out?" They weren't consulted during the production and design of the programme, so that is a bit problematic. It's also unclear what really happens to these finds. They do mention it goes onto a national database, and that there is going to be a database of finds that, you know, this is all done by the book. You know, this is, and they do in the 3rd episode, they have this lady, Henna, who sits in the corner and says, "She's logging all the finds. You know, she's logging all the finds," to show professionalism. But I don't know if the man on the street watching or the woman on the street watching will know what on earth that means. It's equivalent to just saying, "Don't worry, it's legal." You know, it's like, "Nothing to see here." You know, if you're sort of walking past and you see sort of policemen beating up someone, you go, "Don't worry, I'm a cop." You know, as if, "Oh, all right then, that's fine. I'll just keep walking then. Don't worry, I won't even phone you. Good man." You know, it felt like that. It was like, right, it's done legally, but what does the public know about that? What does it mean? Where are these fines going? How are local people going to learn about this? Where's it all going? Another blooper was they don't make a distinction between England and Wales and Scotland. The second programme's in Scotland. Scotland's got very different laws on treasure, much tighter restrictions on what you have to report stuff, in other words. Whereas England and Wales is much looser. So they don't explain that at all. They really don't explain that distinction at all. Okay, other points. The Game of Thrones style opening. The messy and fragmented nature I mentioned. Yeah, I think I've already mentioned that. Raksha does a blooper. She doesn't know when the Neolithic is. But then again, I'm on TV getting the wrong century for Offa's It's just when it's in your head and they record it and you don't notice it. You go, I said 1250 years ago. I meant 1150 years ago. Or was it the other way around? Whatever I did, I said it wrong. And the TV program came out. So I'm not blaming Raksha. I've done it too. But she says that the Neolithic axe is 4,000 years old. Well, if it's 4,000 years old, that would put it about 2000 BC, which is in the Bronze Age, isn't it? Yeah, early Bronze Age. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And they don't really explain the plough soil, that this stuff is from the plough soil. It's already disturbed. And I suppose my final point is, it doesn't matter about the details. Having a program called Digging for Treasure, in which metal detectorists take stuff out of the ground, is going to encourage people to go and do it. And both metal detectorists and archaeologists have expressed concern about whether this TV program will, doesn't matter about the details I've mentioned about what's good about it, will, by the fact it exists, will it encourage further proliferation of an already out of control hobby? Because there's no way this hobby's under control. I mean, I can't remember the estimates. It's in the book, Public Archaeology Treasure. We discussed this, the likely number of metal detectorists, either active regularly or active occasionally in the UK, is 6 figures. A massive number of people own a metal detector and can legally go out, if it's once a year or once a week or twice a week, and with permission detect on beaches or on fields. And that's out of control. So the question is, having a TV program about it of any kind, you could say, well, if it's already out of control, the TV program's not going to make it any worse. Well, you can't blame TV. You can't say, oh, well, it's because my kid saw an episode of Law and Order where someone got shot, therefore that's why he went out and did something. No, TV is following reality here. I'm not saying otherwise, but having the TV program doesn't help. No matter how responsible it is, having a program where they're calling it treasure, they're pulling it out of the ground, no matter how many times they say it's imagination and information, it's not monetary gain. Yeah, it is. People are going to go, oh, I hope I can get something that's worth something. And the same with TikTokers who do this too, who may be good, responsible detectorists, but the fact they're pushing, look, I found in a field, got Bronze Age pole stave, and it's going out to hundreds of thousands of people, is going to cause a problem, isn't it? It's going to cause a popularity. It's going to engage people. It's going to increase the popularity. So, what else can I say about it? I mean, I'd be interested in your reflections on what I've said. Obviously, go and see the program, make your own judgment. I mean, it's not unwatchable. It's just unwatchable for professional and academic archaeologists, I think. But I did watch it. I watched it for you. I watched it for the good public, and also because my book's on this topic, and I had to. And also I had wine. But I also watched it because, what else am I going to do? Rings of Power's only coming out once a week, and it's either that or a funeral 24/7. So, there's not much choice in my life anymore. I don't have friends. I just sit here on TikTok and just watching a bit of TV, Wine makes bad TV good. And, so Archaeospook says there, she forced herself through it. And it was partly because you feel, I need to see it so that I know what other people are saying about it. You didn't even have wine when you're a better person than I am, I'll tell you that. And a more sober person. But I think it was an interesting, I'd like to see the episode 4, which is coming out on Friday, and I will watch it with alcohol and judge it on its own merits. But all I would say is that the end of episode 3 was a triumph. And it's almost like they were messing with me. It's almost like they knew what I was thinking. And the second episode, they had addressed it a bit. And the third episode, they addressed it a bit. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, my ego, but I feel that, well, that's not just mine, because I think other people online have been commenting about these issues too. And they've been addressing them as they go along. It's interesting. All I would say, and I think one of the points I said in our YouTube was that, at one level, I don't care whether this is a success or a failure, as long as we have more than one TV program. And I Well, I shouldn't be too mean about archaeology presenters, but I like Raksha to a degree. I like Alice Roberts to a degree, but I'm kind of sick of them. I don't want to see Dan Snow on TV ever again. It's not about. Well, there are things about them and their style, but it's like if as I said, I think I've said in a live before, like if it's the same faces, it doesn't matter what their skin color is, it doesn't matter what their gender or their age, it's the same people again and again. It just gets tiring. We need new faces, fresh voices, and I just want more TV programs doing different things on archaeology, and some will be flops, some will be positive. Um, but I'm interested to see whether this goes to a second series. I just really, I'm going to talk to, I'm going to go on watching brief with Archaeosoup and see what, um, see what they think, and I think I might say positive things about it there because I think they hate it. And but I think the point is these TV programs, we can't stop them happening, can we? But we can, I think we have to be aware that they're going on. And still people say to me, as on TikTok, oh, Time Team, the 90, people still relate to that years later. These people say, oh, these TV programs, they're, flash in the pan. No one will remember them. No, there's a legacy to these programs. They're still being watched on YouTube, and so this TV program might be the same. They won't invite me on now. I've said all these mean things about them, but you know what? I don't need that kind of stuff in my life. It's enough stress with TikTok, really, isn't it? So tell me what you think. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Any other thought? I mean, what does treasure mean to you? Is treasure? Are they just doing a gloss so they can get it on TV and avoid the flack, or do you think people are beyond seeing treasure as simply money? Do people genuinely think now, have we won the argument that treasure is intimate things? A treasure is personal stories. Treasure is memories. Treasure is identities. Or is treasure still moolah, readies, translated into cash? I mean, treasure is the gate. It's the clickbait word, isn't it? It's the gateway drug. It's the way of getting people in. And people have said to me they shouldn't have used the word. They should have called it digging for stuff. But I really don't think it would get many viewers watching a program calling digging for old shit. digging for stuff we don't even want. Well, I've never found anything that's legally defined as treasure. There you are. That's my response to Johnny Prince Charlie. I think he means best treasure, not beer treasure. I've never found beer treasure, but I think he means best. I think people are still very much about the material, and that's the problem. And it's not the problem of the TV program; it's the problem of the media, the print media, because every new discovery, they talk about the monetary value that the coroner gives it. The very legal process of having a coroner to decide if it's treasure and how much is valued. I'm digging for fire. I think that'd be good. You'd watch a program called "I'm Digging for Old Shit." I think we could do a tongue-in-cheek version, couldn't we? Shit hunters would be a good one. I like that. I like that. Oh, that's very good. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, the treasure word is everywhere. It's ubiquitous, but it has multiple facets to it. It's polysemous, isn't it? It has many different ways we can use it, and as long as we explain, and this is really important when we get along to dealing with indigenous, communities who are descendant communities of particular archaeological cultures, that we can't go, yeah, treasure, oh, it's all fun. Oh, but by the way, we must respect indigenous communities and their descendants, their ancestors. Yeah, we can't be hypocritical. We've got to explain that objects have connections, ancestral ties, have spiritual connections for people, whether it's indigenous communities or it's people of particular faith groups. We've got to understand that, and we can't just forget that the second we use the treasure word and go, look, lovely bling. Let's go down let's go to the, Sotheby's, get an evaluation, So I suppose that's the kind of the challenge we have, is being professional. And some of my colleagues would just say, well, just don't touch us. Don't even talk about this program. It'll go away. But I think these programs, we need to be aware of them and engage with them. And archaeologists are already in there. All the lovies, the great establishment of British archaeology, are in on this program. So it's difficult to know what to do. I don't know. This is the interesting thing, isn't it? Because America, I know I've got Americans in the audience. America is responsible for producing the shittest archaeology. In fact, I remember having an argument with some of my colleagues online a few years back about archaeology on TV, and they're saying it's not good. Ancient Aliens is rubbish. I said, yeah, it is rubbish. But what is your gold standard? What is a good American archaeology program? Give me an example. One good archaeology documentary that's been done in America. And someone said, "Oh, Time Team America was okay." Yeah, Time Team America, in the same way as the American Office is okay, or you know, that's not unfair parallel, but you know what I mean. It's I think Office style. Yeah, I can imagine that. Dunder Mifflin archaeology. I can do it with Dwight. Or more Parks and Recreation, really, wouldn't it be? It's be I can see that working out just well, actually. No, but seriously, my point is, America's got no decent archaeology program. Whatever we think about these British ones, they're not complete effluents. They may be partially effluent, but at least they're not absolutely dumb, knuckle dragging, you know, and let's go to the 78th advert break, and I think it's probably aliens. That was my Donald Trump Ancient Aliens mashup, because I think he's going to appear. If he hasn't already appeared, he probably is an alien. But if it's going to happen at some point, he's going to do that. Probably the most alien I have ever seen. It's totally big league, total alien. You're fired. It's not alien enough. I can see it happening. He's probably his golf courses. The archaeology of Donald Trump's golf courses. Ancient aliens under every single one. Because he made up a whole battle, didn't he, for his golf course? Made up a memorial to a battle in the American Civil War that never happened. So I think it's that kind of world where we can really, I think they can only improve with archaeology programming in the States. Is my point. But in the UK, we may have shit ones, but at least they're not that bad. Now I've traumatized you all with this idea of Donald Trump on an archaeology program. Yeah, it's going to happen. He's never going to die, is he? He's going to be around till the age of 140, even if he's just a stretched bit of orange over some animatronics. He'll still be going strong with the voice, saying, repeating tweets that he did in 2014 or something. Oh, that's not fair, spiritual squirrel vox. Most Americans have a good sense of concept of history. It's just a different one, isn't it? And I don't want to mock Americans. It's not fair. I lovely people in America. Most of my followers are American, and there's some great contact. But you know what I mean. That sort of that dumb TV American stuff. Not, in the same way that we have dumb posh British stuff. Not everyone in Britain is dumb posh and British, and loves the Queen. It's just only one in two of us actually. Anyway, God, I'm going to get banned or something, aren't I, for doing this?
Sadly, we're all going to die. But while you're waiting, why not follow Archaeodeath? Subscribe now on YouTube.